I have many roles in my life: a football player, dad, husband. The one thing in life that is unchanging is Jesus Christ. And I need to center my life on something that won't change, so that when the tempests come and when the storms come, I have something to hold on to.
When and how did you decide to serve a mission?
Graduated from high school and I went and played football for a year at the University of Utah and had a really successful season. Everybody kind of started to speculate, I wonder, will he go on a mission now that he's had a successful season? The NFL is an option, all these things. And he even had coaches. For me, I never even let my mind go there. I got my call right after my rookie year or freshman season, and I got called to serve in Rancagua, Chile. I did have a couple of moments in my first transfer too, where I literally said, one, do I even believe this? Which I think is okay to even think that. And then two, can I do this? It's like you said, I almost had an out. Like if I wanted to, I could have been a very good member of the church, wear it on my sleeve my whole life without even going on a mission. And it would have been okay. I had an out, right? And I remember thinking that during certain lows in my mission. When you're faced with those low of lows, I've started to look at them as amazing opportunities to prove what you actually believe. I can look at this as two ways. One, this is miserable that I'm out here, I'm missing out on these things. Or two, this is where I find my true belief and testimony. It's not in the comfort, it's in the discomfort. People ask me about my football career. I'm the second smallest on the team. I'm bigger than our kicker, thank goodness. And I always say a quote from my grandfather, which was, build on your strengths and organize to make your weaknesses irrelevant. In my first area, I found the local Chilean American football team. And I found out where they were practicing. I went and I showed them my highlight film to say, look, I played this sport. I had them look it up and I said, I played this sport. And I instantly got 30 new guys that I still message to this day. They still send me highlights of their football team.
No way.
To this day. And they had me coach their American football team. And the rule was, if I was going to coach, then after coaching, I teach them a lesson. And we had many come to church. We had baptisms out of it. But it was just this idea of, God knew my strengths. I know my strengths.
Yeah.
And so run with them. God can make more of your life than you can on your own.
Hey everyone, welcome back to LDS Mission Stories. I could not be more excited for today's episode. As you can tell, things are looking a little bit different. I have a very special guest with me, someone who I've looked up to for a very long time, and he is kind enough to take some time out of his busy schedule to sit down with me and talk to me about his mission and the things that are going on in his life. Most of you may know him as a receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles. He's in the NFL. He is a Superbowl champion, but I'm sure the title that he's most proud of is husband, father, and disciple of Jesus Christ. So without further ado, got my boy Britton Covey. Welcome, man.
Man, it's great to see you, Noah. Sure appreciate, being on here. And yes, I am currently at the hotel in Philadelphia. It is our fall camp, which is, sun up to sundown football. So this is honestly a great break from being yelled at by football coaches. So don't yell at me.
Yeah, I won't be yelling at you today. But yeah, dude, thanks for taking the time, and thanks for making this happen. I know that the off season is precious time, and then getting back into the season is pretty an intense schedule from what you've shared with me, and so it means a lot that you'd make this happen.
Of course. No, always happy to. I think it's important, for me as well, because football is very up and down. So you need something to center you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, let's just hop right into it. I mean, I think a lot of the people watching this probably know a little bit about you, but let's hear a little bit of background of who Britton Covey is, where you're from, and kind of the early years. Usually the first question I ask is, when and how did you decide to serve a mission?
Yeah, that's a great question because I cannot remember a specific moment. I know many of my friends who do remember a specific moment, but for me, it was one of those things where I think that I always knew that I wanted to serve. And I remember just having this conviction, it, probably throughout high school, where I just said, regardless of what happens, I'm going to serve. And I kind of just made the decision long before it became a difficult decision.
Hmm.
I just said, I'm going to serve and I'm going to stick to that. And, I had a unique situation in that obviously graduated from high school and I went and played football for a year at the University of Utah and had a really successful season. I
Yeah.
didn't know what the season would look like. I didn't know if I would redshirt, not play. And I had a successful year. And I remember everybody kind of started to speculate, I wonder, will he go on a mission now that he's had a successful season? The NFL is an option, all these things. And yeah, he even had coaches. And for me, I never even let my mind go there
Hmm.
to have it be an option that I wouldn't. Um, I had made the decision years before,
Yeah.
and I wasn't going to let circumstance change that. And so I always found it funny that people were, wondering, and they would always ask me, and I just was very clear. No, I'm going. No matter what happens,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna go. And really, it took the pressure off because I
Right.
didn't have to decide in the heat of the moment because I had already decided.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I definitely had some people, some coaches try and dissuade me, some fans, you know what I mean, try and dissuade me, but most people respect it.
Yeah, well, as a University of Utah fan myself, I mean, I remember, seeing your rookie season and um seeing all that play out, and yeah, mixed feelings for sure. But at the end of the day, that impact that I'm sure you had on, me and several other youth to, show to God and to the world that he's your main priority, right? And what he has set up for you is more important than any worldly endeavor, even though those are great things and they've brought you a lot of joy and fulfillment and, missionary opportunities. I'm sure you have all sorts of cool experiences in that. Um,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I'd love to just dive into that process of receiving your mission call and starting your mission, and maybe share some of the highs and lows of those early months starting your mission. You can also share where you went, would be awesome.
Yeah. So I got my call right after my rookie year or freshman season, and I got called to serve in Rancagua, Chile,
Okay.
or as many returned missionaries say, Chile, right?
Yeah.
Can always tell. And I knew nothing about the country. To me, all of South America was Mexico.
Yeah.
So, that's probably very misinformed. It was very misinformed, but I didn't know anything different. And so I assumed I'd go down there and eat tacos, and I quickly learned how different everything is from, I'd only vacationed in Mexico in my life. And
Yeah.
so people that spoke Spanish, you were either from Spain or there. And so, anyways, got called to Chile and just loved it. But
Mm.
but like you said, the start and just the whole process, um, it is challenging. And I remember part of the reason why I went, and something that I held on to from the beginning of my mission to the end of my mission, and even now, is just this idea that I truly, truly believe that God can make more of your life than you can on your own.
Mhm.
And so anytime someone comes to me with a worldly, not in a bad way,
Right.
with what's a better way of putting it? Uh,
Mortal. Yeah. I
y-
don't know. I know
you know
what you
what
mean.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
you know
Yeah.
what I'm
For
getting
sure.
at with something where they're going to miss out on,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
they have an opportunity in school or to get ahead, or they're going to miss out on something. And I just look at those young men and women and I say, I promise you, God will open doors for you that you don't even know are there.
yeah,
Um, and it might not be right after mission, it might take a decade, I don't know. But as you give your life to Him, I really do believe that God can make more of your life with Him than you can on your own.
yeah.
And I think that He cares about these little small decisions that you make.
Mm.
And so going on a mission was the best decision I could have ever made. Uh, you know, not as good as getting married to my wife, if she ever listens to this,
Love
obviously,
it.
but it was the best decision for my life.
Yeah,
And so yeah, went out on my mission to Chile, and it was a beautiful wake up call, a
yeah,
difficult wake up call, as everybody, not as difficult as some of my companions or friends who went to, you know, quote unquote missions where the culture is a lot different.
right,
Some of the Asian cultures are,
right.
but I did have a couple of moments in my first transfer too, where I literally said, one, do I even believe this? Which
Yeah,
I think is okay to even think that.
mm,
And then two, can I do this?
yeah,
Um, and what's funny is it's amazing how um, God teaches you the way that you need to be taught. Each person has their individual experiences, but similar to how I decided to go on a mission years before and I wasn't going to let anything sway me from that decision. I also decided that I was going to push through anything,
yeah,
and that I was, going to go full bore. And so that helped me when the difficult times came. Now there are obviously circumstances when it's far different, and I was lucky enough to not have to encounter those. But um, it wasn't all sunshine and roses to start.
yeah,
Um, but I am grateful for good companions and great mission presidents.
yeah.
And anyways, just a great experience.
I love that.
There's a lot of lessons to be learned as a missionary, and if you're blessed enough, like you and like me, to have the gospel be a part of your life as you're growing up, you hear stories of missionaries, whether it's from parents or cousins or older siblings, and you go out there with this expectation to just go and um, just experience these miracles. And at the end of the day, you do, and that's something you can look forward to. But at the start of your mission, it may not happen as quick as you think. And
Right.
there's times of
100%.
doubt, there's times of questioning. I mean, for you who, I don't know, I look back on my situation and it was like the mission was a great option for me. I didn't know what else I was going to do with my life, go to college or try to start working or doing something. But where you have this potential path that's a great option, that would lead to a successful future where you could still wear your faith on your sleeve, but to set that aside for 2 years. And like you said, there's a lot of kids in this situation where they feel, especially in sports where it's so competitive now, and a sport like football like is so densely competitive. And it's like, dude, that 2 years of training and experience like goes a long way. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir, sharing that with you, but in those moments where you doubted, maybe you were on your mission and you're like, dude, what am I doing here? I need to, maybe I'm not picking up the language, that I just don't really understand this missionary life. I could be doing so much better at home. How did you get through those lows?
Yeah. So I remember being faced with multiple predicaments. Like you said, I almost had an out. Like if I
Yeah,
wanted to, I could have been a very good member of the church, wear it on my sleeve my whole life without even going on a mission, and it would have been okay. I had
yeah,
an out, right? And I remember thinking that during certain lows in my mission, right? Now, granted, I loved my mission. So I
Right.
felt like, the lows were few and far between. But I did have very low of lows. And when you're faced with those low of lows, you really, it's, I've started to look at them as amazing opportunities to prove what you actually believe.
Hmm.
My wife and I always talk about this, that it's the dumbest phrase ever, but it hits home the more you get it, is faith isn't faith until it's hard. When I was faced with the low of lows, I essentially said to God, okay, prove to me, God, that this is what you want me to do. I'm going to, it's that quote from the scriptures, prove me herewith, right?
Yeah.
And almost putting God to the test. Now, we're the ones that are put to the test. God is true, and he's, um, we can't put God to the test, but in a way, that's kind of what I would do in these lows of lows. I'd say, I can look at this as two ways. One, this is miserable that I'm out here, I'm missing out on these things. Or two, this is where I find my true belief and testimony. It's not in the comfort, it's in the discomfort that I say, okay, I'm needing to reach with my faith
Yeah.
because this is not easy. This is hard. And I need to reach. And only in the reaching am I actually going to find out what I really believe. And I actually think that's when God makes himself manifest.
Yeah.
Everybody wishes God would just appear. And I think it would be great. It would be so nice, but it wouldn't change you. It's that reaching, that that being in the depths and struggling, where you are so vulnerable that you change and you become like Christ. And that's the whole point of it. It's not just to know that God's there, it's to become like him.
Yeah.
And so now when I'm faced with difficult experiences, I take what I've learned from my mission and I literally use it as opportunities to say, this is really hard. God, I'm going to put what you've promised me to the test.
Yeah.
And I've had enough experiences where I just have this knowledge that he is there and involved in my life. And that doesn't mean that it's always turned out exactly how I expect as I put God to the test, quote unquote.
Yeah.
But you do, so example on my mission, I remember going to, and everybody has this experience at least once where you get called to the area, right?
Yeah.
Which is the area where no one wants to go.
Yeah.
And I literally remember the first couple days thinking this is going to be the longest 3 months of my life. It's just nothing going. The members didn't want to see you. No investigators. And I basically said in my mind, I can do one of two things here. I can continue to justify why I won't be able to teach people here and fight against this and just survive, or I can put God's promises to the test. I'm going to literally just say, God, help me make more out of this with you than I could on my own. And had some beautiful experiences there, met multiple families, had just, small miracles, big miracles. But the biggest miracle in my mind was that concept of when I'm faced with something hard, I can do one of two things. And the way I lean now in my life is this isn't an opportunity to run from God, to be angry at God. This is an opportunity to let God show me that he's real, that
Mhm.
he's involved,
Yeah.
right? Let God prevail, as President Nelson used to say. So everything difficult is an opportunity for God to show you and show you that he is there.
Right.
Anyways.
I love that. You really have nothing to lose when you apply yourself to the gospel and embrace every aspect of being a missionary, and I remember just forcing myself to just nerd out about the missionary schedule and just going as hard as you can. And it sounds like you're similar, and that allows those difficult times to not only be bearable, but to be effective in your
Yeah.
in your pursuit to for yourself to draw closer to Jesus Christ, but also to help others come closer to Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And you know, and to get into some mission advice for people is I started to, you know, mold things in the mission that were geared towards my strengths. You know,
Yeah.
I always tell people when people ask me about my football career, you know, I'm the second smallest on the team. I'm bigger than our kicker, thank goodness. Um, but people always ask me how I've done it in football, and I always say a quote from my grandfather, which was, "Build on your strengths and organize to make your weaknesses irrelevant." Um, and you know, I remember having this concept on my mission multiple times before I could speak the language well, or before I felt like I was a good teacher. You know, I used to look at other missionaries and be like, "Gosh, I wish I could teach like them." I didn't feel like that at the time. Uh, but God can help you run with your strengths. There really are people just for you.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, in my first area, I found the local Chilean American football team. And I found out where they were practicing. I went and I showed them my highlight film to say, "Look, I played this
Yo.
sport." I had them look it up, and I said, "I played this sport," and I instantly got 30 new guys that I still message to this day. They still send me highlights of their football team
No way.
to this day, and they had me coach their American football team for about 3 months. Yeah.
You're
And
kidding.
the rule was if I was going to coach, then after coaching, I teach them a lesson, whether
Yeah.
in their home or on the field. And we had many come to church. We had baptisms out of it. But it was just this idea of God knew my strengths. I know my
Yeah.
strengths.
Yeah.
And so run with them, you know?
Yes.
And anyways, at the time there were Los Caninos de Talca, the canines. And you guys would laugh so hard if I could show you the video clips. I hope they don't see this, but you'd probably have a sixth grade American team would probably beat them. These guys were people ranging from 16 years old to 50 on
Yeah.
our team. These just full grown men that just fell in love with American football,
Legends.
and they got all their stuff off of secondhand sites.
Yeah.
And there was no team jerseys. It was just dark jerseys and white jerseys. So your linemen would be wearing Tom Brady jerseys,
Yeah.
you know, anything they could find, and secondhand helmets from old. But it was beautiful, you know, and run with your strengths and
this is like a full contact.
full contact.
Like it's not flag football or anything. Like this is as legit as they could get. They tried.
Yep. One of my quarterbacks, his name was Braulio, and he was like 50 years old. And then he, you know, and he had like three kids. But anyways, so I just learned quickly that I was going to let God use my strengths. And I used that for multiple companions. I remember I had a companion who he didn't like to talk to people. He had a really hard time, but he was a great artist. And so I bought him a whiteboard and used him in every lesson to just draw the plan of salvation, baptism, all these beautiful things. And I saw him change and realize how God could use his talents and gifts that he was given. Anyways, and then you develop new talents. But yeah, build on your strengths.
That is so well said. And what a unique story at like just down in Chile too. It's like you wouldn't expect an American football story to come from a mission, serving a mission down there, but it happens. And it's moments like that where, you know, God is throwing hints at you or, you know, confirmations that you're where you need to be, right? Yeah. You not only need to be looking for those opportunities to use your strengths, but you can have faith that he'll provide those opportunities, right? It's kind of that give and take. I would love to hear, you know, you shared a few awesome stories already. I'd love to just rattle off maybe one or two specific stories that were impactful for you that, you know, down the road, you're sitting down with your grandkids and they ask you about your mission. You know, these are the few stories that you might share with them.
Yeah. Oh, it's hard to pick. One of them is kind of what I referenced earlier, which is when I got to that very difficult area. And I looked at it as one of two ways, and I said, I'm going to go, you can do the two extremes, and I'm going to go this way. I'm going to work so hard and be so dedicated and try and do everything that I can. Um, and I don't know if I'll see the results, but I trust that God is going to be in the details. And sure enough, one day, as I'm just exhausted and we've been street contacting, and no one wants to talk to us, and almost like something out of a movie, we're just sitting down on the curb in this lower income area, and half inflated soccer ball rolls right up to my feet. And it's just this 14-year-old kid named Ben Hameen. And he just, he asked, "Do you want to play?" And so we start playing together. And then I see his mother and his aunt in there watching us. And sure enough, we go in to talk with them. And this was when I really felt at one of my lowest of lows. Um, and we go into this house and it opens up, and it's literally like two families that were just begging for something in their lives. Uh, and this is in an area that had not seen many opportunities like this. And I don't know how they hadn't been contacted by the missionaries in the past, but they hadn't. And um, they all ended up obviously getting baptized. I still talk with them to this day. But I think about that experience often, that I had to wait, I had to be patient. And I might, some people have this same story and they don't ever see the results.
Right.
But um, they don't ever see the people. But I think that uh, God waits sometimes until you are truly reaching. Not always. I don't think he asked you have to be there. So that was a beautiful experience for me. I think another experience that I've thought about many times, that I tell missionaries is the last two transfers of my mission. I just wanted to go out with a bang, right? I was so excited, and I was determined to find some people that I felt like could help lead the church down in South America and Chile in the future. And I wanted to find just some very competent leaders of the future,
Yeah.
and people and so I started to look for people who had a religious background already, so they understood. And um, anyways, I was praying for this uh, wholeheartedly for months, and I got put with a companion, Elder Padilla, and the first thing he said to me was, "Elder, I want to go home. In fact, I'm going to go home." And here I am. This is the last two transfer my mission. I'm so excited. I feel like I could put all my knowledge to the test and
Yep.
go out with a bang. And here I feel like I'm just having to almost babysit this companion for a second, because he didn't want to wake up. He didn't want to go out and work. And I was so frustrated. I'm like, I don't want my mission to end like this. But I was praying for Elder Padilla, constantly talking with him. And so I would say to him, just give me one more week and then we
Yeah.
can talk. Give me one more week.
Yeah.
And sure enough, the first week went by and it was very difficult for both of us. And I tried to stay positive, and he said, "I want to go home, Elder. I'm going to call my parents." And I said, "Just give me one more week." And anyways, I kept noticing that P-Day was particularly hard for him.
Mm.
And every time we'd come out of the internet cafe talking with our families, I'd come out with a big smile on my face, and he was just distraught. And I noticed that, he wasn't getting many emails. And anyways, this is about week 3, and he just would say to me, "I want to go home." And I am praying every day to know what I can do to help Elder Padilla. I want to keep him out on the mission.
Yeah.
And so sure enough, I go back to the internet cafe, and I had a prompting, and I don't feel like I had too many extremely specific promptings, but I did have a few, and I had a very specific prompting to write his parents. And so I asked for his parents' emails,
Yeah.
and I wrote them a letter that just said, I just want you to know that I'm so proud of your son. I love being with him. He has such a good heart. He's doing wonderful things out here. Um, I knew that he was a convert and that his parents, I think his dad was baptized but not active. I knew his mom wasn't. And anyways, I just said, I don't even know if you guys know what he's doing out here, but I just hope you know that it's making such an impact on people. And then we left, and we had another somewhat difficult week. And we go back in the internet cafe that Monday, and I look over and I just see tears streaming down his face. And his parents had written him a letter, and I wasn't aware at the time, but every week we went into the internet cafe. The only email he got was a long letter from his parents saying how disappointed they were that he had gone on a mission, how they didn't understand why he had done it. They wanted him home. He was missing out on school opportunities. His little sister was sick. And if that's the only email you're getting, and that's the only support you're getting, how are you going to stay there, you know? And so I look over and he's got tears running down his face, and it's an email from his parents just saying, "We're sorry. We didn't know. We're so proud of you. We didn't understand." And when I tell you a switch flipped, and in 1 second, his entire mission changed. And he was excited about the work, and he felt like a weight had been lifted off his back and like he could. And I feel like that was the roadblock that sometimes the Spirit needs someone else to help, take down so that he can feel it. And we had an unbelievable 2 transfers together. And I shortly thereafter realized while praying that the leader that I was looking for was my companion.
Yeah.
That my companion was my prime investigator at that time. That everything that I prayed for, and we had success too. We found people, but circling all the way back to the beginning of that story, that the most important investigator that I was going to have was my companion, and to always treat them as such. This was advice from my grandfather. When you're frustrated with your companion, you look at them 20 years down the road and you say, what kind of experience do I want them to have had with me, with God, with the mission? And your companion is your first investigator. So anyways, that story always hits home to me, simply because I think on your mission, you're always praying to know what people are needing and struggling with. And that can include your own companion. And when you find that one thing, like as in Preach My Gospel, it says the key to conversion, it opens doors. And you'll find that with yourself sometimes, when it's just like someone will be your guardian angel and say something, do something for you that just opens the floodgates where you can, anyways, witness it.
Yeah. It's powerful stuff. And it's so real. I love the lesson there and the emphasis. I mean, yeah, like you said, it talks about it in Preach My Gospel a lot, about the importance of, companionship unity, and, how the Spirit is the best teacher, and the Spirit cannot be in your companionship if there's any, misalignment as far as, frustration, whatever it might be. And I remember, being on my mission, and, there's certain things about your companion that maybe get on your nerves, whether it's, a lower level of motivation to do the work, or, even the littlest things. And 9 out of 10 times it was a situation where, when I looked at myself in the situation, I could almost fix it, and it made me compromise, right? And I think that's the idea that you need to expect when dealing with companions, and really any relationship. That's why mission is so rad, because it prepares you for your future relationships with, your spouse and the people you work with. Is it most people, when they have a hard or difficult attitude towards something, there's context as to why they're in that space, right? And you gotta follow the Spirit and figure out, when the time is to maybe figure out some of that context so you can be in on it and figure out ways to support. But what an amazing an experience that you were able to be trusted with that prompting to, you know, reach out to his parents and make that connection without even knowing it, you know?
Yeah.
It's like God was using you in a way that you didn't even know it would unfold the way that it did. And
Right.
there was a reason for it.
Yeah. And you know, like you said, I had multiple companions where it was similar situations, and I might not have felt very specific promptings, and things ended up working out. But you know, there are times when there are things that you will think about doing. Um, I it's just funny to think back. I still have group messages with all my companions, which is so fun that, you know, and you will make some of the best relationships of your life because on your mission, you you are just, it's kind of like how I used to explain to people, you know, when I'm with certain football guys and sports guys, they all have this like ego about them where they have to be cool, and it's just the worst. Not
Yeah.
everyone does, but there's a good portion of them do, you know?
Yes.
And so, not to be all Troy Bolton, High School Musical, but I always enjoyed like taking a break and hanging out with certain like theater kids, even in college. I
Yeah.
took a couple of acting classes because there was just
Oh,
this freedom to act how you want to, and you will not feel more like that than on your mission. To everyone listening, you are just, sometimes you'll wake up and you're like, where am I? What am I doing? I'm in Chile. I I eat food that I didn't even know existed.
yeah.
I'm only speaking a foreign language, and life is going on somewhere else in the world that I knew. Like, what am I doing? And it is just a great time to just be vulnerable with your companion.
Yes.
And there's no pressure, there's no ego, and
Yeah.
it makes for some of the best relationships and the
Yeah.
funnest times.
Seriously, I know I talk about that all the time with buddies. It's like, did you ever laugh harder than on your mission?
No,
Oh,
absolutely not.
you go and read in your journal and, you know, even try to remember some of those stories that made you laugh so hard and they're like not even funny, but like something about that environment and in those situations that you really are just having the time
Yeah.
of your life.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
I was talking with a companion the other day. One time we found ourselves in a full-on monsoon, and the irrigation in where we were at was so bad that the streets would literally have like flash floods, and we were up to our waist in water in a monsoon. But we had made a commitment that we were going to try and talk to a certain number of people and that we would not go inside until we talked to that number of people. So we stayed out in the monsoon trying to
Yes.
talk to anyone and everyone, and it was totally not effective and it
Yeah.
was totally extreme.
Yeah.
But we had made a commitment that morning that we were going to at least say talk to 50 people, and we were at like 30, and we said we have 20 more. So we were looking, and it was just the principle of it. We weren't going to find anyone. It might have been counterproductive
Yeah.
in the eternities. People are like,
You're
what
right.
are these guys doing? You know what I mean? But it just was this idea. We'd knock on people's doors and they'd be like, what are you doing? I don't want to talk to you,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? But we were out there, and sure enough, this old lady answers the door and she's like, what are you two chiquillos doing? Come inside. And so we go inside soaking wet. And she's this 80-year-old, and she comes out with two towels and she holds them here and she goes, disropa, take off your clothes.
Yeah.
And we were
Yeah.
like, oh no. She goes, no, I'm going to dry your clothes in the dryer right now. And so she made us go into the room, put towels on, and she dried our clothes while we're sitting on her couch with towels on, just looking at
No
each other.
way.
This is what I'm saying. Like, I haven't thought about that story in a while until, you know, this last month. But anyways, I'm just, to anyone listening to this, thinking about a mission,
Yeah.
you really do, you know, so the best times of your life, some of the most challenging times. But I go back to what I said. I truly believe that uh, that is a time set aside where God can show you who He is.
Yeah.
It is a time undistracted from the world where God can prove certain things. And I've had friends forget that since coming home. I've had uh, different things where it's challenging because I experienced those things with them. Um, but it's a wilderness.
Yeah.
If you look in the scriptures, what does God do? He sends his people into the wilderness to be cleansed, to learn, to change before he sends them back into the world.
Mm.
If you take Lehi's family and everything, they had to depart from Jerusalem and go into the wilderness. And that is when they had all of their miraculous experiences. The children of Israel had to go into the wilderness. Heck, you even look at the saints in the modern days
Yeah.
going into the wilderness. John the Baptist, Jesus going up for 40 days into the wilderness in the mountains. This is a pattern set by God that if he wants to show you his power, and have it really mean something, not just appear to you, right? But have it truly change you, which is the whole point of life, is to be changed and to become like Christ. It's not just to know that he's there, it's to become. Then he needs you to be off your phone. He
Yeah.
needs you to be in a space where you're like praying, God, I need you, where you're not worried about this or that,
Yeah.
right? This is why the mission is divinely inspired, that we go at the age that we do,
Right.
because it is at the time when, if we didn't have that wilderness, I don't know if many of us would truly experience God in the way that you need to.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Well, and they're such formative years, right? And I always talk about, and you've kind of hit on it, but what you gain from a mission, setting aside all spiritual benefits, right? Setting aside your conviction of Jesus Christ and his gospel, the life lessons you learn as a missionary, like socially, practically learning how to do your laundry, how to cook a meal, how to travel, how to talk with others, how to make friends, how to work through problems, like that's more effective than almost any other environment. Go to college, go in the workforce, like you will not get any. I mean, this, I guess, is just my take on it, but like there's no other environment that you can excel in that way.
Yeah, in a secular sense, there's nothing that's going to give you more skills,
Yeah.
And once again, that's part of being separated from all the distractions. But heck, half the time, I think the reason why BYU academics are as good as they are has nothing to do with the teaching. I think the teaching's phenomenal, but I think it's just a bunch of returned missionaries who have learned how to study more than the vast majority of 19-year-olds in the country.
Yeah.
Anyways, but
No, so
it's
true.
it's the mission is wonderful and it's important.
Yeah.
So,
Well, this has been so insightful. The majority of our conversation so far has been pretty similar to the other ones that I've had on this podcast, which I was hoping for, because I just wanted your raw experience as a missionary. But a lot of what I'm interested in is how that's affected you in your life. Being a professional football player, being a father and a husband. I would love to talk like post mission, how your life kind of unfolded and how the things that you learned on your mission, kind of as we've talked about, set you up for success in the other aspects of your life that maybe didn't directly tie to spiritual things.
yeah, well, yeah, I think that's good we talk about that. I've learned that, you kind of stay in your lane. People know me as a football player, so I'll talk about football. Like that's, that's what people like to hear about. Definitely, I'm not gonna lie, the mission did not help me physically. I heard that myth growing up.
Yeah.
That God was gonna bless me physically if I went on a mission. And I remember watching athlete after athlete come back from their mission and not be quite as good as
Yeah.
they were before. And but that's not the promise. I think the promise is that we hand our life over to God, and
Yeah.
he will be with us, whatever that means. But that's the best way to put it. Those who I forget what the wording is in Nephi, but those who keep the commandments will prosper in the lands, and those who don't will be cut off from their presence. Doesn't mean that those who don't won't prosper. I can't tell you how many people I've seen on my football teams that didn't go on missions, are not keeping the commandments, whatever it is, and I'm not trying to be judgmental, but just the reality, everyone, has different backgrounds and things, and they don't keep the word of wisdom, and man, they can run and not be weary way better than I can. They're way stronger than me. They're better football players, and they're killing it on Sundays. And so that's not the point, right? That's not the promise. But man, what I learned from the mission and how it's helped me as a football player in different ways, not just in spiritual ways, but like you said, everything I learned and applied has been wonderful. And I can't tell you how many spiritual conversations I have per week to this day. One of the favorite things to do here at the Eagles is we just sit down at lunch, and one of my teammates will just say, "So Covey," and then spout off some random Mormon trivia thing that they probably learned from Netflix. And then it turns into this big discussion. And I just have opportunities to talk about it and break down barriers. And it's the best. And I love it. No one has more questions than Saquon. Saquon Barkley has more questions than anybody. Yes, he always comes to me with some new thing that he's heard or learned. And he recently kind of got into Christianity, and it's been really fun to have conversations with him. He's such a good person. But it's also just, I've realized how easy it is to bring up spiritual things in life. Do you know how easy it is to go up to someone and just say, "Do you ever go to church?" Just say that. Be like, "Have you ever gone to church in your life?" And just watch what that opens. Be like, "Yeah, I don't know if I believe in God," or "Yeah, I do," or "I haven't gone to church in forever." And then you just be like, "Did you grow up going to church?" Like, And so all the time in my life now, I just think that spirituality is such a great question that's not, no one's like thinking you're trying to convert them. It's just it's so deep to people and who they are in their core. These questions that all of us have, and you can ask them in such a simple way. And I love doing that nowadays with all my teammates. Be like, "Hey, do you believe in God?" Whenever I'm in the sauna with a teammate, I'll just ask them something like that. Because it's not weird. I think growing up, you think it's weird. And then as you get older, you realize, no, people want to talk about that because that's what everyone's thinking all the time, is all these deep things.
Yeah. Well, and
it's so applicable as you grow up, you start to get more curious about life. I think a lot of people naturally are driven to start a family and do these life-changing things, and having God involved in those decisions is an interesting and helpful thing, right? And man, there's so that I'm so curious. I obviously whatever you might feel comfortable sharing, but do you have a story or two of maybe a missionary moment with your teammates that you wouldn't mind sharing?
Yeah, I might keep his name private just because he's kind of higher profile, but here's a good example of kind of what football and my missionary work consists of. So obviously I'm changing in the locker room, and people see my garments all the time, and it's always funny because the first time that people see my garments, they just bust out laughing and they start pointing at them and talking at them. And then I'll explain it to them, and I say, "Oh, these represent covenants that I've made, commitments, spiritual covenants." And then they just feel so bad. And then anytime someone else comes and starts laughing at him, they come to my defense. They say, "Don't you dare make fun of him. Those are his religious, sacred garments." You know what I mean? Yeah, it happens all the time. I've got teammates, Quez Watkins, that every time we're on a flight, he checks to make sure I have my angel suit on because he's scared of planes. And he knows that if I'm wearing my garments, that we won't go down. And so I have multiple teammates check on that.
What?
I had a higher profile teammate. This was a couple of years ago that once again, we were just in the conversation at lunch. There's about 10 of us, and they're all talking about Mormons and all these misconceptions and laughing and stuff. And I really, I just choose to be unashamed in my beliefs, right? And I realized that people respect you more the more unashamed you are.
Yeah.
My friends that shy away from it, they don't have the respect for people that they think they're getting. It's almost like trying not to offend someone or something. But the more unashamed I am in my beliefs, the more people respect me and the more interested they are. And so we were talking about it at lunch, all these things, and it's almost like they were trying to make me downplay my membership in the church. You guys don't drink coffee, all these things, and I have an easy out. I could be like, yeah, it's kind of weird, all these things. But I just take it as an opportunity to talk about how much I believe it.
Yeah.
And sure enough, later on that day, my teammate that was there pulls me to the side, and this is one of them that was laughing and joking. He says, "Hey, do you really believe those things?" And he speaks with so many expletives that I like trying to simulate his voice without doing it.
Yeah.
But essentially, he had just had someone close to him pass away,
Hmm.
and had I not in that moment at the lunch table, had I shied away and not been 110% in, I don't think he ever would have respected me or trusted me enough to come with that vulnerable a thing. And he basically just said, "Do you really think I'll see her again?" And I had the opportunity to testify at the plan of salvation to him. But it just brings me back to that. The more true I am, the more people, even if not in the moment, even if years down the road, they will remember that I was true to it and that I was unashamed about it. And it's in those moments that they'll come to you. And they won't come to you if they don't believe that you're true to it, or if they, this is part of why religion, hypocrisy in religion can give a bad name, is because people see someone doing something on Saturday and then doing something else on Sunday, and then they say, I don't want to, and none of us are perfect, but I try the best I can to be a good representation so that they can come to me. And I've had that happen 20 times with teammates.
Wow.
Brought multiple teammates to church, and anyways, it's just good experiences. And I've even gone to one of my teammates' churches and shared with him. And I have a teammate, Will Shipley, who shares with me all of these Bible verses every day. And anyways, just great experiences. But yeah, the more true you are to it, the more people will respect you.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. I mean, President Uchtdorf has talked about the idea of, sharing the gospel in normal and natural ways. And I remember watching Elder Bednar did a podcast. I actually got to help film it. And, he was asked, they were talking about sharing the gospel online, bearing testimony of Jesus Christ through social media or whatever it might be. And they're asking for his advice. And he basically said the picture you've drawn here illustrated. And it's basically to just live your life, right? To live your life and not be ashamed of your number one priority, which is God and his kingdom, his doctrine, his gospel, right? And naturally, as you live your life, as you talk about the spiritual journey that you're on, people naturally be curious and have questions, and not only have questions, will engage with you to give you an opportunity to learn. I love that you bring up your teammates who are, Christians and have a belief in God, and you're able to learn from them. I mean, like that's the whole, the body of Christ is made up of all of God's children, right?
Right.
No matter where they stand as far as beliefs, we all have the light of Christ within us. And it's a cool experience to not only, share that, but also, receive it as you engage in those conversations.
Right. Exactly. and you know, we don't have a monopoly on truth. I'm like, man, I've learned so
Yeah.
many things from people, and so yeah, this is where I have faith and football really go hand in hand in a lot of ways, and
Yeah.
I don't know how much impact, if any, God has in football. I doubt much. I know He can, but what happens when I'm praying for His help, and then the guy guarding me is praying for His help? You know, what's God gonna do? You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
don't think he gets into it too much. I think He can. I think He has in
Yeah.
at times, but I don't think He necessarily. You know, but I do. It's a weird paradox because at the same time, I do think He is very involved in small and daily things in our lives and
Yeah.
opening doors. And that includes secular doors with work and opportunities.
Yeah.
Um, so it's a paradox. I think there are times in my life when I need to remember that um, God cares way more about, you know, my standing in the church and kingdom of God. And but then there are also times in my life when I need to remember, but He also has asked me to pray over my football and my
Yeah.
fields and flocks and
Yeah.
things. And that anyway, so I'm at the point in my football career now where I have a much better understanding, I think, of how I pray to God
Mm.
for football, um, which is I believe certain blessings are conditional upon asking.
Yeah.
And so I ask a lot, and I ask away, and I have seen miracles from it. And yet, my testimony of God is not dependent on the result of receiving those specific blessings,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. It's not like I'm saying, God, you do this, or I'm not going to believe. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I've had enough experiences with God that I know He's there and I know that He's involved.
Yeah.
And so the Spirit teaches you what to pray for, and this is kind of what I feel like I've been taught to pray for. And
Yeah.
but I still ask. I still ask for a punt return touchdown. Have I had one in the NFL yet? No, right?
Yeah.
I've been close, but I still ask because who knows? Maybe in one
Dude.
in a billion times, God's
Yes,
going to
bro.
send an angel out there and throw a block for me. I don't know what's going to
Yeah.
happen. Probably not. But if a blessing's conditional on asking, I'm going to ask. But I'm not going to, you know, if I go out there tomorrow and have the worst game of my life, my testimony of God is not dependent on specific blessings like that I'm creating and putting a list on God telling Him to do. I'm going to
Yeah.
ask for it.
Right.
But as I'm more with the Spirit, I feel like I've been taught what to ask for.
Yeah.
And so this is, you know, maybe in closing, just with people talking about a mission and things, this is what I do think it is okay to promise based off of what prophets have said. And I'm always hesitant to, you know, I don't know what's doctrine, scripture, all these things. I don't know. But I do truly believe that as you give your life over to God, He will make more of it than you could on your own.
Yeah.
And that looks different for everyone. It looks different to you than what you're probably imagining, but it will be in a positive way.
Right.
And so that's what we need to do. We need to give our lives to God. This is what
Yeah.
we covenant to do.
Yeah.
And we need to have it not be dependent on, all right, well, if I'm going to do this, God, then you better this. We
Yeah.
should ask for that. Say, I'm going to do this, and I hope that doing that, you know, but trust that God will make Himself known unto you
Yeah.
and in your life.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay to pray for.
It's amazing.
Well, I can definitely say there's some spiritual ties to football. I remember me and my dad and my brothers came to the Rose Bowl when you guys played Ohio State, and watching you have that, I think, a 98-yard punt return, man, I was feeling all sorts of spiritual things, man. And it's so cool to draw the parallels to these things that aren't necessarily of eternal nature, but God knows they're important to us, and He
Right.
assists us in helping us progress towards that. I want to ask two quick questions, and then we can wrap up here. The first being is that you represent a very common and hard challenge that a lot of people deal with. Being, overcoming odds, is maybe a principle that I think you embody. As a smaller, or you're not necessarily the standard that people are performing at in the NFL, but you're able to still compete, right?
Yeah.
And most of that is physical comparison, but most kids, most people deal with that on some level where it feels almost impossible to reach a certain goal or reach a certain status. What has helped you do that, and maybe put aside those doubts that the world is telling you in order to excel and continue to push forward?
Yeah. Well, I think the first one and the main one is what I said earlier. You build on your strengths. And even if a job description is given to you that does not match your strengths, you'd be surprised at how much you can mold that job description to your strengths. I've done that in football, where I'm
Yeah.
literally given an assignment and a route or a blocking assignment, and I mold it and I say, okay, I'm not the biggest, strongest, fastest, but I can be the smartest. I can watch the most
Yeah.
film. I can do this. Heck, and then the second one I would say is adding value, even if it's not the value you want to add in the long term.
Yeah.
And this is a classic sports analogy and idea, but if you look at the best teams, especially in basketball, the best basketball teams, the teams that win the NBA championship every single year, they have one thing in common, and it's they have like they have one or two, maybe three stars, but they have like 6 or 7 role players that just understand how they're adding value.
Mm.
They might go in for 4 minutes a game,
Yeah.
and this guy is known as a 3-point specialist. He doesn't do anything else. He just runs around looking to shoot. Or this guy is known as a lockdown defender. Heck, we had a guy on our basketball team that was in there to go and foul their guy as
Yeah.
hard as he could to say this isn't going to be, and he would literally go in there just to foul him.
Yeah.
Just this,
Yeah.
But it's just this idea of part of why I've made it, especially in the NFL, is and it's been very difficult for me because I feel very much like a good enough receiver to be a starting receiver in the NFL. In fact, I know I am. I've been told this from AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and Puka, all these guys who I've played with.
Yeah.
That have said, if things were different, had I been drafted, I could be a starting receiver in the NFL. And yet I have only started 3 games in my career at receiver. And it's frustrating. And I want to just tell people that I can do that, but no one cares. No one believes you if you're not doing it.
Yeah.
And I've realized that the way I make the team is being the best punt returner,
Yeah.
And even though it's not the value that I want to add long term necessarily, I recognize that it's what is the value that I need to add, right?
Yeah.
It's putting down your pride and saying, I'm going to play this role and I'm going to obsess over this role.
Yeah.
And so long term, who knows if I'll ever get a chance to start at receiver? Maybe
Yeah.
not. I know I could, but I might
Right.
not. But for now, I'm just going to obsess over that role because I know that's where the value needs to be added. So in whatever job, school, anything like that, it's, understanding, okay, what value will be greatly appreciated, even if it's not what I want to do long term. It's like, I'm going to dominate that to where they can't help but giving me more,
Good.
So good, dude. I love so much to take away from that. My last question, and you can kind of, tag along your last words or testimony, whatever you feel enticed to do, but you have, you've accomplished all sorts of things, right? And I would love to kind of, put them side by side. You have a Super Bowl, right? You're a Super Bowl champion. You're also a father. You're a husband. You're a returned missionary. I would love to hear just all of those have value and importance to you, and not that you necessarily need to rank those accomplishments or roles that you play in your life, but I'd love to hear what those roles mean to you, and how you're able to um glorify God through those roles in those things that you've done in your life.
Well, I think my grandfather wrote a book years ago called The Divine Center. It's a great book. He wrote it for the church. And I think it illustrates the principle that you're talking about. I have many roles in my life: a football player, teammate, brother, cousin, uncle, dad, husband. And all of those roles are so fun for me and bring me such joy. And I'd be lying if I say that my mission brought me as much joy as my kids do, because it didn't. You know what I mean? Or even just the natural feeling of euphoria that I get from my kids is far and away the highest of anything that I've ever done, and which is a spiritual work in and of itself.
Yeah.
But I will say the one thing, and this is the divine center, the one thing in life that is unchanging is Jesus Christ. And that is why we need to keep going back to it and center our lives on it. Other things that are even very good things, like family, sport, job, things that are good things, if you center your life on it, it can change in 1 second. I remember being in high school, and my good friend Porter Openshaw and Zane Openshaw, their family, I remember waking up to a text that their family had died in a plane crash. Is something that shook the whole Provo community. And I would think I was a senior in high school, and I remember just feeling this shock and weight, because I'd experienced tragedy in my life, but I don't know what it was about that moment that it just was so, he was a counselor in the bishopric. I knew them, that their kids were some of my great friends, and things can change in 1 second.
Yeah.
Even good things. I went out there in the Pac-12 championship in 2018, excited to have my best game ever, and I hyping the team up in the huddle right before I'm gonna take this kickoff to the house. Everyone's going, yeah, I get it. And I go and I take one bad step and my whole knee, every ligament in my knee just out. Right. And so in 1 second, everything that I've been training for, hoping for, praying for is just changed, gone.
Yeah.
Didn't know if I'd ever play football again after that. It took me 2 full years to get back. So even the best things in life can change. The
Yeah.
one thing that will not change is Jesus Christ. And so I'm not saying that, you have to only think about, the gospel, and it should bring you the most happiness, and you feel guilty because you're like, what if church sometimes feels like a little bit of a burden? And that's okay. That's not the point. The point is recognizing this principle of, okay, Christ and his gospel is the one thing that won't change. And so I need to build my life on there outward. And I need, and so it's that's what keeps you coming back. It's not necessarily that I have more fun in second hour of church than I do doing other things, and that's why I keep going back to church. It's
Yeah.
this understanding that I have, and it comes from experience and reading the scriptures and things, but just that Christ won't change, and I need to center my life on something that won't change, so that when the tempests come and when the storms come, I have something to hold on to. When I tear my ACL, I have something to hold on to. When I experience tragedy in life, I have something to hold on to.
So good. I feel like I've learned so much from you, just talking about these principles, and I feel this this desire to go and do more and to apply myself and apply some of these lessons. And so, Britton, I am so grateful. Seriously, thank you for
Taking the
Oh,
time,
thank you.
some of these stories, and sharing some of your counsel. It's been so cool.
Thank you, man. This is great. I really appreciate it. And to anyone out there wondering about a mission, message me on Instagram. I'll hype you up.
Let's
Seriously. I'll look through my messages, message me. If I can ever hype you up, you just tell me.
go. Okay.
Well, that's the perfect way to end on, man. And yeah, again, thank you so much. And we're stoked for you. Good luck with the season and whatnot. And yeah, dude, best is yet to come.
Go pray that some angel's out there blocking for me.
Yes, sir.
This has been Britton Covey serving in the Chile. You got to help me out.
Rancagua
mission. Thank you all for tuning into this episode, and we'll catch you on the next one.